have a drink, getting a smoke, have all the things I need because I know I'm going to have a bad time doing this. So like Slipknot before it, I'm going to do a band review. I'm going to review an entire band's body of work in under 15 minutes. And the band I'm doing today is the one that you guys chose, and that's the band Korn. Korn is almost like the cigarette that keeps burning out, partially because of my air conditioner. They've only been satisfying for a little while, and then that run of satisfaction is over. And then it's almost like what would happen if I smoked my first cigarette ever and hated the sensation. I mean, yes, it was a smooth sensation, but then all of that anti-smoking media kind of got to me, and I figured, well, there's no reason for me to do this ever again. And then I tried it again and absolutely loathed it. Okay, that metaphor really sucked. How about I use one that's even better? I can actually describe Korn, the band, with corn, the vegetable. Yeah. Stay with me. Korn's first few albums, I'm going to be bold and say up to the first half of Issues. First 3.5 albums, so to speak. Kind of remind me of what Korn would be like that you enjoy. Now, I like corn, the vegetable. I like corn with a little bit of butter sauce on it, a little bit of salt. I can just eat a plateful of it. I love it. It's great stuff. We're going to say that the first 2 albums are kind of like that. It's corn with butter sauce with a little dash of salt. These are albums that not only can I stand, not only can I tolerate, but I actually kind of like. Because Korn, what they did, they by themselves, they really helped push the nu metal scene kind of into the forefront. But the thing is that before the scene ever even blew up, they were already in the atmosphere. They were already in the vicinity. This was already an invasion that had started, and it was just an invasion that was taking some time in order to pick up momentum. The first self-titled record, and I have to say first self-titled for a reason, and Life is Peachy were both landmark albums. These are albums that since have sold very, very well. However, perhaps not as well as some of the albums that came after it. These are albums that are kind of still sought out almost as a novelty. And I'll explain why in a minute as well. Follow the Leader came out in the late 1990s at the most perfect time. This was a time whenever the nu metal craze was blowing up. This is where you got your Stained. You have your Limp Bizkit. You have your Korn. Rob Zombie has gone solo. Basically, all of the wheels have come together. All of the wheels are on the vehicle. All of the cards are in the card house. Everything that you need for a sensation to be caused has occurred. Ozfest is now in full swing and is now about to employ a lot of these bands for many, many years to come. So whenever Issues was released, I mean, I have to say this, and I know somebody out there, somebody who was at my blog TV last evening, somebody could certainly cite me as a fan back then because she knew me back then and knew that I liked the band. She knew that I enjoyed Life is Peachy, the self-titled, and Follow the Leader a lot. So that's something that's not up for debate. That's simple fact, and that's a fact that I not only accept, but I will fully promote to you. Whenever Issues came out, this was an album that was a little meh for me. Whenever I heard the first couple of singles, I was not exactly very impressed. So this was an album, this was actually one of the very first albums that I felt the need to burn instead of buy, so to speak. So yes, I've just admitted to you, 1, that I like the first 3 Korn albums, and 2, that I am, at some points, a pirate. R. But this was for a very good reason. Issues to me was a very inconsistent record. It was one where all the people that really dug Follow the Leader, that made it one of the top albums of that particular year, one of the top albums in the nation, one of the top albums in the world, all those fans were expecting a lot of more brutality. They were expecting something, and they got what they were expecting. However, the one thing I noticed on Follow the Leader was that there was definitely a little bit of a push towards like a little bit more of a commercialistic approach, and that was something that worried me a little bit, because the first two, while there was material that were released as singles and that definitely had that vibe for the radio and were on the radio for good reason, as a whole, it was still very, not so much an experimental genre of music at the time, but it was something that was a little bit new, a little bit fresh. It was like fresh corn. It was like fresh corn. You need to have your corn fresh whenever you eat your corn, because if you don't have your corn fresh whenever you eat it, there's going to be a lot of problems. You're going to have a lot of indigestion. You're going to have the fiery farts. It's going to suck ass, all right? That's all I'm going to say. It's going to suck ass. But these two were fresh. Follow the Leader was kind of fresh, that was sort of recessing down. Maybe the expiration date was getting a little close, and then whenever issues came out, it was almost like you're eating it right there on the date, and you're really taking a risk. You're really taking a risk. And this metaphor fits perfectly, because many, if not all, of the albums after that are almost like you're eating corn after the expiration date. After a while, this band just sort of became a clusterfuck of its former self. They would experiment and tweak with a lot of different things. They would make things more brutal. They would sample with rap, so to speak, with songs such as Y'all Want a Single. They would do a lot of things that I really considered to be just them keeping the public happy. Nothing more, nothing less. It was them keeping their public happy. The albums became indicatively inconsistent, to the point where if I were to even sample these records in local music stores or sample them with friends, after a few songs I would just become extremely bored. I would become very confused. The whole entire experience was not a pleasing one for me in general. And this was something where this was a band that, unlike many others, did not take a hiatus. They didn't really slow down at all. They kept releasing records on a very consistent basis. Albums such as Take a Look in the Mirror, there was another self-titled record that was in there, etc., etc. And it just seemed like this was a band that wasn't going to go away, but they had already released some of their best material. So now we're going from corn on the cob, or as I like it, sweet corn with a little bit of butter sauce and some salt on it, to now that disgusting, degrading, just absolutely bowel-eroding cream corn that you get at an old person's home whenever you're down there visiting your grandmother as she's sitting there in her room. She's got an IV full of the shit. She's not enjoying it. You have to enjoy it on your plate because that's the only shit that they serve you, along with Salisbury steak and some wretched pea, offering. Some green shit that they're trying to pass off as another vegetable. Maybe a couple apple crisps. You never know. But at any rate, you're eating this and you're just not liking it. That's my general take on these albums. These were a horrible experience. This band definitely became very listless. They became very dull. They became very monotonous. And if you don't know what the word monotonous means, folks, look it up. Sure, they may have experimented around a little bit, but a lot of these experiments were terrible. They were not well conceived. They were not well done. And for those people who were really high up on the old material, they weren't following this. But there's one thing that I have to admit. The fans, the true fans, the kernels, so to speak, the corn kernels, whatever the hell you want to call yourselves, ate it up. Each and every album ate it up. There were albums that maybe sold a little bit weaker than others, but if I were to sit here and tell you a gauge of the sales that I make at my store based on Korn albums, Korn records, the like, I would say that 75 to 85% will be for these latter era albums, these post-issues albums, and that will include the best of that was released as well. There's a couple best ofs actually, but the one that was released by the band. And I would say that the other 15% will be divided amongst the newest record, which was released here in 2010, and the first two. Now you might be wondering where Follow the Leader, or should I say, I'm sorry, the first four. First four, I'm sorry. That's right. The albums I consider to be the best by this band are the ones that are the least most bought. And it's basically because I think a lot of these fans either already have it, either that or they don't really like that style. We like that style, some of us old school metalheads, some of these old school new metal fans or rock fans, we like it because we think that it shows a little bit of creativity. It shows a little bit of diversity. It's actually good music. But these newer fans, these younger kids, they've been raised up on this 2000s era material that really just is very inconsistent and dull and listless. And that is what they believe the Korn is. so many fans I've talked to that have absolutely no idea about the first two records. And we sell them, and they're right there. They're right there. You would think that if they're these diehard fans, they would look at them and be like, hey, the fuck is this? But no, a lot of them don't. This new record came out this year, and I'll be perfectly honest with you folks, I didn't even give it a shit. I didn't give two shits about this album. A lot of people said to me, Mark, you gotta check this out. This should be placed between Life is Peachy and Follow the Leader. That even didn't spurn me to even give this a listen. I listened to the single on the radio and about threw up. I was not impressed by the single whatsoever. To me, it still is all the same. Maybe it's a little heavier, but that does not make a good song. That a good album does not make. So this album is released, and I'll be quite honest with you, it's a kind of a mixed bag for people. So maybe I should give it a shot. The reasoning being that half the people don't even like it, and the other half do. And a lot of the people that don't like it are the new school, new age fans. This is kind of perplexing. This is one of those things that really gets your mind brewing a little bit. Well, this is what I'm going to have to say to all of that. No more brewing. This cigarette's almost over. That means this video's almost over, so that means I need to address my final thoughts. My final thoughts about this band. Well, let me tell you something. Corn and any vegetable in general, any fruit in general, is a perfect metaphor for this particular group. Whenever it was raised, whenever it was conceived, whenever it was hanging there on the tree, on the stalk, on whatever it is, it looks fantastic, it tastes fantastic, everything about this, it's ripe, it's good, it's ready to go. It's ready to be processed, it's ready to eat. Thanksgiving fucking dinner, go for it, motherfucker. But once they reach that critical mass, that expiration date, that date in which everything just becomes old, it becomes decayed, it becomes nasty, it becomes a percolation in your stomach that's just not a good percolation, then this band became absolute ass. It became inconsistent, it became listless, it became dull, it became boring, and absolutely 100% this is what you have now. Early era is whenever you're eating the corn off of the cob, whenever you took it out of the bag, weeks or months before the expiration date, threw it on your plate, fired that shit in the microwave, and ate it and enjoyed it. But now what you have now is a kernel, a corn kernel, that is sticking out of a giant piece of shit that you just dropped right in the toilet. Bam, bombs away, there it is, staring you square in the face saying, hey, do you remember me? I'm Korn. That's what this has become. And am I saying this because that head left the band? Because he went God? No. The downfall had already begun. The empire was already collapsing. The castle was crumbling. Him going to God may have been the best thing for him, because he would have had to continue on through this treachery. It may have actually saved his soul. He would have still been rich. Fuck it, he is a moron. General last thought. If you don't know the first album entitled Korn, or Life is Peachy, look it the fuck up. If all you care about is this 2000s era garbage, I don't want to hear your comments. Because to me, you're just already an idiot. Thank you and good night.